Hey, get ready to talk like a brand and live your best brand life. I'm Peachy Williams, your brand voice builder. Today, we're talking about how to define your company's brand voice. So, let's get into it. If you haven't realized your brand has its own personality by now, it's time to shift your mindset. Every major company has their own unique personality that resonates with their target audience. For instance, Nike's is tough or being able to overcome all odds. On the flip side, take a look at Target or Skittles. You'll find a playful, relatable brand that makes you smile, right? So each one of the brands I've mentioned has a signature of their own. Those brand voices took time and patience, but in the end, they totally killed it. Don't you want that too? So if you want to put yourself on the road to success, there are a few things you cannot avoid. First, research. Yes, you hear it all the time, but it's true. You need to research your target market. What do they want? What do they need? Most of all, how do they want you to talk to them? You can't successfully define your brand voice if you don't know who your audience is. You need to think about what problem your company solves, and now's the time to do it. Get down, dirty, and very specific. Who does your product reach and why? You're going to need the demographics and psychographics on your audience. Those are the real customers, so you'll be able to engage them where they're most comfortable. Next, you'll want to figure out how your audience likes to communicate. Communication is key. Is it through social media? Which platform works best for you? What about those other tactics like email, TV, radio, or even direct mail? These tactics need to be used depending on who your target audience is and who's most likely to receive what you're saying. Your brand voice is how you connect with your audience, so you must talk to them in their comfort zone. You won't speak to parents the same way you speak to students, so knowing the difference in your audiences is key. So that brings us to a content audit. Do you know what a content audit is? We're going to talk more about this in another episode, but you want to conduct one to determine whether your brand voice has purpose. A content audit also helps you determine what's working, what's not, and what you actually need to do to be successful. You know, it's easy to look at the competition and wonder what they're doing, and you want to know not only what they're doing, but how can you do it too? But I say wear blinders. That means stay in your lane and don't copy anyone else. While you may want to study how certain companies use their brand voice, it's up to you to be your own brand and have your own voice, your own uniqueness, your own personality. That's what's going to count in the end. So you should know what your brand voice can and cannot do. The worst thing would be being something you're not, because the words you use are very important. And so is having brand voice guidelines in place to actually direct what you need to say and when you need to say it. Most of all, you need to align your brand. Make sure your brand voice aligns with everything you do. If your logo is fun and playful, your tone should be as well. But if your logo is a little more corporate, every touch point should fall in line with that. Your branding needs to be consistent across all platforms to avoid disconnecting with your audience. So here are a few tips. 1, your logo should align with your brand voice. It's not uncommon to see a logo or representation of the company that's completely different from what they represent. Isn't that weird? But that's why I always say everything starts with the brand voice. Second, when developing your content calendar, you should have topics that actually match your brand's personality, and they need to be appropriate for your industry. Third, match your tone and personality across every platform. That means how you present yourself on Instagram or LinkedIn. It should also be clearly heard if you write a blog for someone. And lastly, you want to work with influencers who share your brand's values. You want people that have content that will match what your company's doing. Because we all know by now that followers doesn't necessarily equal dollars, right? So once you get a hold of what you really want to say to your audience, you should have brand guidelines, brand voice guidelines. This is a document outlining every element of your brand voice to make sure you and the people who work for you remain on brand at all times. This will, in fact, ensure consistency and a unified brand voice, because the goal is to have a voice so distinctive that a reader knows it's your brand without having to click on an article or ad. That's when you know you're on the right track. Remember, if you're your authentic self, you have no competition. Until next time, check us out at The Right Mix, WRITEMIXX.com.